This episode uses language that is on par for this channel, but deals with subject matter that some might take issue with. Viewer discretion is advised. Guys, where are you? Huh? A note? It says Nick is down for maintenance, primary systems are offline. Uh-huh. I'm sure that's a coincidence. And Ralph and Xylo went to an Orioles game? What? Without me? What the hell? And where's Gizmo? I guess I'm on to reviewing Homicide Life on the Street, Season 2, Episode 3, A Mini Splendid Thing. But, I'm gonna need a few minutes to figure out how I can even talk about this episode on YouTube, so roll opening credits. Hey, I'm Jess Willie. I'm a TV and media critic who occasionally branches out to other stuff. I've got some pretty cool friends. A little strange, maybe, but cool. There's Nick, an AI copy of a buddy of mine from college that I installed on my smart TV. He's supposed to keep the show on track, but he spends more time watching Brazilian cooking shows. There's King Ralph Detritus, an old toy from my childhood who is somehow alive, and he rules a massive underground kingdom from a stronghold in my basement. There's Zylogaphia P. Robinson. She's a magical winter elf who started out as an observer from the International Internet Reviewers Guild, but she sorta went native. So if you want to know the story, go and watch the back catalog. If you're just interested in a review of the thing you clicked on, sit back, relax, and don't ask questions. Or if you have questions, leave them in the comments. Maybe I'll answer. The only question you can be sure I'm gonna answer is, did I get what I paid for? Our story begins with Munch and Bolander walking through the park. Munch is lamenting the end of his most recent relationship. Bolander is going on about the joys of the rebirth of nature. Then they finally get what they came there to see. The corpses of a homeless couple who appear to have died from an OD of prescription drugs. Cue opening credits. Back at the precinct, Bolander says, Howard, I'm in love. I need you to go out to dinner with me tonight. Whoa, major HR violation there, Stan. Especially when he asks if she's still close with D.A. Danvers because he needs him too. Normally, I would make an inappropriate joke here, but Howard makes it for me. It turns out Bolander wants a double date, not, you know. Elsewhere, Templeton and Bayless are investigating the murder of a naked woman found in her apartment building. She's got a note in her hand that says, Ed did it. Open and shut, right? So they go talk to the neighbors who found her. The neighbor is willing to tell them pretty much anything, and her boyfriend is a little too interested in the investigation. But even Pretty Mary Sunlight is clammy when Ed's name is brought up. She says, look, Angela had a few boyfriends, but one who would do something like this? I don't know. Maybe you should ask someone at the clothing store where she worked. In the garage, Howard is telling Felton and Munch about her morning's adventure. Munch is, well, all Munch about it. She protests, but she eventually tells them where they're going to dinner. just to get him to shut up. So this clothing store that Templeton and Bayless are supposed to check out, it's a tannery that caters to motorcyclists and, let's just say, a certain activity that you used to see advertised more openly, at least in Baltimore, in the age before AdamandEve.com. Pendleton seems to fit in fine, but Bayless is even more nervous than I am, trying to phrase this in a way that will allow me to avoid the YouTube thought police. They talk to the girl at the counter. She gives them the exact same information the neighbor did, only heavily seasoned with sarcasm. There is one difference. She tells them who Ed is. He's Angela's boss at her other job. Yeah, even in the 90s, you couldn't afford an apartment in the part of Balmer that isn't a demilitarized zone on a single income. So she had to have a second job as YouTube won't allow me to say it. So I'll just call her an audio only cam girl. Munch goes to talk to Giardello about Stan's romance. Giardello says, I don't care. I need that report on the dead homeless people. Munch says, I wrote the report, but we've got a problem. I didn't pick up the phone. Stan is the primary. He hasn't signed off on it. Giardello says, you have until the end of the day. Munch replies, that is not fair. We need to make Bolander miserable again or nothing will get done around here. She says, you're right, I'll talk to him. Pendleton and Bayless go to the dirty phone place and, dear Lord, one of their employees is Jay Sherman? Hachi Machi, how does this place get any business? Anyway, Ed tells them what we do here, it's a lot like pro wrestling. It's scripted. None of my girls actually say anything dirty. If the caller interprets it that way, well, that's on them. It's the ultimate theater of the mind. Bayless says, well, somebody didn't keep it in their head. And the note says, you did it. Ed looks at a copy of the note and says, that's not her handwriting. See? Then he points the finger at her boyfriend who works at, let's just call it an adult recreation facility. Up on the roof of the precinct, Giardello is talking to Bolander. He says, wait, your girlfriend is 26? Well, that's kind of creepy. And eventually it's not going to end well. She'll either cheat on you or cause you to have a fatal heart attack after hours of continuous... Yeah, you see where that's going. Bolander says, well, I'd rather die happy than be a lonely who hasn't really let a woman get close to him since his wife died 7 years ago. Giardello says, well, you got a point there. Frasetti and Lewis get what looks like a very easy case. A man was shot to death in the library. There were plenty of witnesses, and a stammering librarian saw everything. But there's a catch. The whole thing was over a pen you can get at Dollar Tree. Pretty weird, right? Keep watching because it gets weirder. Look, I've read Simon's book. This is yet another case that actually happened. Well, most of it anyway. Pendleton and Bayless go to the medical examiner's office. He tells them what they already suspected. Angela was killed using a belt with metal studs. There are no signs of any, YouTube unfriendly crimes. So we can go back to Cressetti and Lewis now. Speaking of Lewis, he can't wrap his head around the case. Rossetti says, look, I know Munch and I are a bunch of old conspiracy theorists, but sometimes weird stuff just happens, you know? Lewis is like, I know, but why go to the trouble of shooting a guy because he won't sell you his pen and then leave it behind? Meanwhile, at the, let's just call it a club, Angela's boyfriend is hanging out with a bunch of nice-looking ladies. Pendleton and Bailiff talk to him about Angela. He gives them the same it's all fantasy shake his head, but with a more in-your-face punk rock aesthetic. Bailiff snaps and is an inch away from beating the shit out of the guy, until he tells Bailiff he's getting off on it. Bailiff explains how Angela died. The club owner says, yeah, I broke it off with her because she didn't understand there are limits. Are you sure she didn't, David Carradine herself, and the neighbors staged the crime scene and hid the evidence in order to protect her reputation? They have nothing to charge him with, so Pendleton and Bailiff head back to the car. Bailiff asks, how are you so comfortable with this case? Pendleton says, I don't judge. Whatever floats your boat. Bailiff asks, aren't you Catholic? Pendleton says, yeah, I even studied with the Jesuits for a while. I almost became a monk. That's why I get it. Bailiff asks, so love the sinner, hate the sin? I guess I'm just a prude. Pendleton says, and a tad homophobic, even for the 90s. But you have to understand these things. You're a detective. Bailiff says, what are you saying? That I can't catch murderers because I'm not a psychopath? That I haven't solved the Dino Watson's murder because I'm not a pedo? Pendleton says, don't be so melodramatic. All I'm saying is that everyone has part of their personality that makes them an asshole. You have to recognize and accept that, and learning to use it for a higher purpose is the only way to be a good person. Bailiff said, now you sound like a Catholic. Cressetti walks up to Lewis. He says they got a print off the pen of the crime scene. Lewis is fidgeting with his new pen. It's fancy looking and painted gold on the outside. He gets this devilish look on his face. Bolander's date seems to be going well. He and Linda and Howard and Danvers are all sitting around laughing and having a good time. Howard wants to know how Stan's music lessons are going. She says he's technically competent, but he won't loosen up enough to actually play. She wishes he would because she thinks he'd be great at it. Yeah, it's a metaphor for Then Munch shows up. He gets Stan to sign the report. Then Linda just has to invite him to have a seat. Lewis and Cressetti go to talk to the woman at the front desk of the apartment building where their suspect lives. They ask her what she knows. In spite of the guy having lived there for 15 years, it's not much. Just that he's an honest man with a few mental health problems. Lewis and Cressetti don't buy it. I do. I've lived in my neighborhood almost my entire life, and most of my neighbors don't know me that well. They explain to her about the pen murders. She says, see what I mean? Honest. The guy said he wouldn't sell him his pen, so he didn't take it. Need I remind you, this case is based on real events. That is something a non-fictional person said. they get permission to go to his apartment and look around. Do you remember Charlie's secret shrine to the waitress on It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia? His room is sort of the same idea, only to his obsession with pens. Pendleton and Bayless go to the leather shop. They ask the girl at the counter about the belt. She says she knows just the pattern they're looking for, and it only comes with one jacket. Funny, Angela's neighbor bought one just like it for her boyfriend. So it's back to the neighbor's house. They start to have a friendly little chit chat and steer the conversation towards the jacket. They ask to see it. They go to the closet, and what do you know? The belt is missing. The lady is super pissed off and starts looking all over for it. Back at the restaurant, Munch is going on and on about the futility of love, and how no matter what you do, no matter how hard you try to hang on to it, you eventually wind up completely alone, even if your partner is lying there in bed next to you. He's made everyone just as happy as he is. The staff was supposed to have gone home an hour ago, and now they feel like the steaks they just served have a less heated future than they do. Eventually, everyone leaves. Well, everyone but Bolander and Linda. Louis thinks the steady fine pen guy. He's on the roof of the precinct. He tells them he was going to find a pen so he could write down his full life story. He was sure it was one that should be shared with the world. Now, Louis was going to use his gold pen as bait, but now he has a better idea. He shows it to him. He says, "You tell your story to me, and I'll write it down." And what do you know? It works. Just by and by, this is the only part of the story that didn't actually happen. The real guy got locked up in Shepherd Pratt Mental Health Facility, but that wouldn't make for great television, especially during Sleeps Week. Bayless and Pendleton get the boyfriend in the box. He starts being evasive. They tell him everything they know. He says it wasn't like that. Angela and I couldn't stand each other. But my girlfriend was at home, and I had locked my keys in the house. She invited me over to Netflix and chill. Bayless says that's impossible. This is the 90s. The internet runs off of 14.4K modems. Streaming services won't even be possible for another 15 years. Pendleton sighs, "Tim, I think that's a euphemism for casual sex." The guy says, "Yeah, and she was into some kinky ish. Like my college dean always used to say, I hope this doesn't awaken something in me." Oops, too late. At which point I might have kinda, sorta, accidentally killed her as her little death turned into a big one. This causes Bayless to freak out. So Munch, Bolander, and Linda have driven out to Fort McHenry so that Stan can take a piss. Linda says that she finds Munch fascinating, but she can see why Stan hates him so much. Munch wants to know why she brought them out there. She tells this long, emotional story about how her great-grandparents met there. She likes that Munch is looking out for Stan. In a weird way, it's kinda sweet. But she has no intention of breaking Bolander's heart. Munch is not buying it. Stan comes back and fireworks. Not the metaphorical kind, literal fireworks. That's strange because it's not the 4th of July. They would have mentioned that in the script, and there'd be a huge crowd gathered around. They're too far away from Camden Yards for it to have been from a home run celebration. It doesn't matter. Munch admits defeat and gives them some alone time. To wrap things up, Lewis explains about pen guy to Giardello. Felton shows up for a second scene and asks to borrow a pen, so he takes Lewis's. Womp womp. Leather Shop Girl shows up with a present for Bayless for simply doing his job. He tries to refuse, but she tells him that custom purchases cannot be returned. She forces the jacket on him. The look on Timmy Boy's face makes you think he likes it. Not the jacket, the her forcing him to wear it part. I guess he's taking Frank's advice after all. Oh yeah, he is. The next shot is Bayless in his jacket cruising the clubs at Bell's Point. And that's it. That's the episode. Yes! First off, this episode is great. It might not seem like much of a mystery, but really it's not. Unlike, say, Law and Order, Homicide Life on the Street is rarely about the crime itself. It's about the characters involved and what makes them tick as people. It's about nuance. Sometimes that can get lost when you're doing a review show based on snarky comments. This is exacerbated by the fact that almost every scene deals with something that YouTube might not even let me talk about. Okay, on to these two seasons themselves. Yeah, I know police procedurals have taken a bit of a hit in recent years thanks to what happened to George Floyd and continues to happen in cities all across the country every day. That is the great thing about Homicide Life on the Street. It is not propaganda. Yes, the characters are police officers. Sometimes they solve crimes. But the story is never 100% about the crime. It tells the story of police officers, warts and all. Even in those early seasons, not even the rookie Tim Bayless is a moral paragon. Giardello was a great administrator, but has a bit of a temper. Howard is trapped as the female cop who is the most empathetic one in the unit and has a huge chip on her shoulder. Pendleton is so full of pride that he'll never admit when he's wrong, even when he clearly is. Lewis is the little boy who never grew up. Frasetti is off in his own little world, chasing the real assassin of Abraham Lincoln because he can't deal with his own crumbling home life. Bolander has no work-life balance because the thought of having a life terrifies him. Munch is the opposite of Templeton. He's cynical, but he doesn't want to be. He wants to be proven wrong, but he's right far too often to ever really achieve this. And Felton, YouTube won't even let me talk about everything that's wrong with that guy. That was the last of the literary adventures, which means it's time to rank them. There are only 3 of them, so it's gonna be a little easier. I think that X-Men the Animated Series Old Soldiers is the bottom of the barrel. As much praise as I just heaped on Homicide Life on the Street, which it most assuredly deserves, it's still at number 2, which means The Adventures of Mark Twain is number 1. Ralph, Zylo, and Nick are going to be mad they missed this one, because I've decided what we're watching for the next 3 episodes. That's right, it's been a long time, but the time is finally here for more Star Trek Enterprise. I want french fries, I want french fries. I would need money to get you that gizmo. Go get money, go get money, go get money. If you'd like to see Gizmo eat french fries in our upcoming reviews of Star Trek Enterprise, go to patreon.com/parodyerrorfilms and become a patron today. Click and subscribe, click and subscribe, click and subscribe. I think you mean like and subscribe. That too, that too, that too.